Hey there, folks. Today, we're going to talk about a topic that's been making headlines recently. Ex-President Joe Biden's take on why his former vice president lost the election. Now, it's important to note that this is just a speculation based on a recent interview with ex-President Biden. So, let's dive in. In a recent interview, ex-President Biden shared his thoughts on why his former vice president lost the election. He mentioned that there were a few reasons behind this, including the fact that the former vice president didn't have enough time to campaign in the swing states. But he didn't mention the fact that he was supposed to be a transitional president and not run, and some Democrats are saying, Joe, enough is enough. It's all about you. The crew under the five will take a look and give their comments and views. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to follow and subscribe for more interesting discussions like this one. Stay informed and stay engaged.
Broke into a New Jersey ICE facility that holds some of the very violent migrant offenders, including an MS-13 gang member. We'll fill you in on that later. But first, the man who destroyed the Democrats. Joe Biden's return to The View was a train wreck for a party that's desperate to move on. At one point, poor Joe was asked about his mental decline and needed Dr. Jill to swoop right in and save him like the Easter Bunny from the ladies of The View.
What is your response to these allegations, or are these sources wrong?
They're wrong. There's nothing to sustain that. And so we went to work, and we got it done. And, one of the things that
and Alyssa, one of the things I think is that the people who wrote those books were not in the White House with us, and they didn't see how hard Joe worked every single day. If you look at things today, give me Joe Biden anytime.
Well, the left may be ready to move on, but the stench of Biden's failed 4 years in office still lingers in the air. But some say enough is enough. The Obama pod bros are going nuclear on Sleepy Joe.
He shouldn't have run for a second term. And when he did run for a second term, he should have stepped down much earlier after the debate. And his close advisors shouldn't have told him to run again, and they shouldn't have told him he was going to win.
This media tour is about Joe Biden. It's not about Donald Trump. It's about Joe Biden defending himself and his legacy. He's made it about himself.
Yeah,
and that I think was
which he made the last year of his presidency about.
It's not something you're going to solve on The View. And so it's like, step back. If you really truly believe that the work you did was good, then you have to trust history to judge it correctly.
So, Greg, the Bidens go on The View to basically gaslight and say everything was fine still, even though we watched and know it wasn't.
But, these guys are talking about 2024. The mistake was 2020. The biggest mistake the Dems ever made was run that guy, picking him and letting himself expose the shallow and useless nature of their party. He will go down as the worst president in history, no question. The party was already a mess, but they picked the worst possible person to front it. It's like Mattel making Casey Anthony their CEO. A disaster. And I think we're letting the media off too lightly. Right now, they're saying, and you can hear it with those guys, hey, it was the White House who kept us from knowing Joe was a mess. As if journalists were under house arrest. It's like the mission of their job, which is actually to report. They can't do that anymore. They only tell the story, but they wouldn't let us. So instead, they have $1 billion company behind them. They have all the tools needed to tell a story. But you know what? The White House would be upset with them if they did it, so they didn't, and that's on the White House's fault. No, you're a journalist. You're supposed to report things, not just tell stories based on your assumptions. It used to be if you told a reporter that you can't report on something, that would energize them to report on it. But now they've been reduced to stenographers. They don't chase a story. They tell a story, or they repurpose it from another story. This is actually the biggest political story of a generation, but they avoided it because they didn't want to feel ashamed about it. And I get how they want to move on. Who wouldn't? When a criminal is arrested, he'd love everyone to move on. But the criminal doesn't get to decide when you move on. We do. And again, this cover-up merits the kind of scrutiny that should have been there in the first place if the party had simply done the work at the start, paid attention to the voters and not to the activists, stopped indulging the false promise of identity politics and actually looked outward at the world. They wouldn't be in this problem. They're still in this problem.
But Joey, I remember the Democrats doing everything